to all. Today's daf is Yerushalmi Brachot daf Lamed Zayin. We are starting Lamed Vav based on the bottom with the brand new halacha, and in the Vilna Source daf, it's Chaf Hey Amud Aleph on the top with the brand new halacha. And today's daf is sponsored Lilu Nishmas Marsh Miriam Sarah Bas Yaakov Maisha. Her neshama should have an aliyah. And the halacha Gimel tells us, the Mishnah says, Nasham Avadim Uktanim Peturim Mekriyah Shema U'Minat Tefillin. Women, non-Jewish slaves, and children, they're patur from Kriyah Shema and from Tefillin. Now the reason why women are patur from these things is because we know that women are patur from mitzvahs asay shazman groma, time-bound mitzvahs. And since there's a set time for Shema and Tefillin are not worn at night or Shabbos, they are both mitzvahs asay shazman groma, and therefore women are patur. Now avadim, non-Jewish slaves, are chayav in mitzvahs like a woman, making them patur in mitzvahs asay shazman groma as well. And the ketanim that we're referring to are children that have not yet reached the age of chinuch. For once they reach the age of chinuch, we should be mechanech them to do these mitzvahs. The Mishnah continues, Lam Zayin on Alpha on the top, v'chayavin b'tfila u'mezuzah u'berchas hamazon. They're chayav in tefillah, they're chayav to daven shemona esrei, and to have a mezuzah on their house, and to say berchas hamazon. And we're going to discuss this all in the Gemara. The Gemara has Nashim Minayin. How do we know that women are patur from Kriyah Shema and Tefillin? And in particular, a question is regarding Shema. Even though we know it's a mitzvah say shazman grama, there still is a tzad to say that women should be chayav in Shema, because Shema is kabbalas ol malchus shemayim, and women are chayav in kabbalas ol malchus shemayim. So how do we know that they're patur from Shema? So the Gemara tells us, the pasuk says, "V'limantem oisam es b'neichem," and you shall teach them to your sons. What do we learn from here? As b'neichem v'lo as b'neisechem. There's a chiyuv to teach it to your sons and not to your daughters. Now this teaches that women are patur from Talmud Torah, and by extension, they're patur from Kriyah Shema and Tefillin as well, because we have a hekesh between Torah and Shema and Torah and Tefillin. The Gemara continues, Avadim Minayin. How do we know that Avadim are patur? Shenamar, that's because the pasuk says, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. What do we learn from here? As she'ein lo yadin ela kadosh baruch hu. This is only for someone that has one master, Hashem. Yatsa Eved, that excludes an Eved. Sheish lo yadin acher. He has another master. He has his human master, so he's not chayav in Kriyah Shema, and by the same extension, he's not going to be chayav in Tefillin because of the hekesh. Now, Ketanim Minayin. How do we know that Ketanim are patur? That's because the pasuk says, L'man tia taras Hashem beficha. In order that the Torah of Hashem should be in your mouth. And what do we learn from here? B'shashu tader ba. A person's chayav in Torah when they're going to be tader, when they're going to be constant in learning Torah and being involved in Torah. Whereas over here, since we're dealing with a katan not yet the age of chinuch, who would only wear tefillin occasionally, so it's not going to be considered tader, so they're not chayav in tefillin. Now we explain why they are chayav in the things that we mentioned in the Mishnah. V'chayavin b'tefillah. Why are they chayav in tefillah? Kadei she'ei kol echem echem v'makesh rachem al atzmai. That's so that every person should ask for rachamim on himself. We mentioned before that tefillah, shemona esrei, is called rachamim, and every person has to daven for rachamim for themselves. So that's why women are chayav. Or mezuzah. Why would women be chayav in mezuzah? That's the chsiv, because the pasuk says, Uchsaftam al mezuzah beisecho v'yisharecha. You shall write them and place them on the doorposts of your house and your gates. Now, even though the mitzvah mezuzah is not a mitzvah sesei shazman grama, so it should be obvious that a woman's chayav in it. The chiddush over here is that mezuzah is not compared to Talmud Torah, even though they are in psukim that are learned one from another. And with berchas hamazon, why are they chayav in benching? The chsiv, because it says the pasuk, ve'achalta v'savato ve'rechtas Hashem alikecha. So we see that chayav berchas hamazon is on anyone who ate, so they have to bench. And now we continue to talk about mitzvah sesei shazman grama. Taman Tanin over there, we learned in the Mishnah. Call mitzvah sesei shazman grama, any mitzvah sesei shazman grama, any time-bound mitzvah, anashim chayavin v'hanashim peturais, men are chayavin, women are patur. B'chol mitzvah sesei shel lo yazman grama, any mitzvah say that doesn't have to do with time, echad anashim ve'echad nashim chayavin, both men and women are chayiv. And ezu mitzvah sesei shazman grama. What are some examples of a mitzvah sesei shazman grama? For example, sukkah, lulav, shofar, b'tefillin. All these things have to do with time. Ezu mitzvah sesei she'ein hazman grama. What are examples of mitzvahs that are not time-bound? Kigun, for example, aveda, returning a lost object. V'shiluach hakein, sending away the mother bird before taking the chicks or the eggs. Maka, making sure that there's a fence around the person's roof. V'tzitzis, and putting tzitzis on a four-corner garment. Now, Reb Shimon paiters anashim mitzvah tzitzis. Reb Shimon paters women from the mitzvah tzitzis. Shehi mitzvah seish hazman grama, because the mitzvah seish hazman grama. How so? Sharei ksos laila pater minat tzitzis. Something worn at night, pajamas are pater and tzitzis. So therefore, it's considered mitzvah seish hazman grama. Now, Rav Laya says, Talmud Rabbanon, the reason of this Tanakama is shekein im haisam yuchedes loyla yom v'la. If a person has a garment which is designated for both day and night, meaning this garment is meant to be worn all the time, she chayav tzitzis, it's chayav in tzitzis. So according to the Tanakama, tzitzis is not a mitzvah sesei shazman grama. And now the Gemara is going to discuss the concept of arvus, which is shared responsibility. Kol Yisrael arevim zelazeh. All of Am Yisrael is intertwined and responsible to help each other do mitzvahs. Therefore, even when one has recited a bracha already, he can recite it for another, because if he wasn't Yaitz Chayav yet. Now the other person is Yaitz because of Shemei HaKa'ineh. Listening is like saying, one that hears a bracha is like they said it. And now the Gemara says, Tani, we have a brisa, Kol brachas she'adam pater, any bracha that a person is pater for making. That's the girsa that we're going to be using with the word bracha, not with the word mitzvah. So even though a person is pater in making this bracha because he already said it, Adam mighty esrab midei chavasan, a person could be mighty other people in their chiv of this bracha, chutz min berchas hamazon, except for benching. And v'hadu taninon, kol she'enoi chayav b'davar, ein mighty esrab midei chavasan, anyone that's not chayav in anything in the first place, so they cannot be mighty other people in their chiv. Now